This is a third stimulus check update. The big vote in the House is supposed to happen tomorrow to pass the $1,400 stimulus checks. Assuming it does, I'll give you the estimated dates of when you can expect to get paper checks, debit cards, and direct deposits. I'll also give you an update on the increase in pay for Social Security beneficiaries, including SSI, SSDI. Also, what Republicans are saying about the current COVID bill and the unnecessary spending. Surprisingly, they're not against stimulus checks, but against spending for bridges, $200 million for museums and libraries, among a few other areas that you should know where your tax dollars are going to. Then I'll answer the questions you leave for me in the comments. I hope you're having a fantastic day. If you appreciate these updates, then hit the like button down below. So the Koch brothers backed group has launched a multiple of ads trying to sway lawmakers from rejecting the COVID relief bill. If you're not familiar with the Koch brothers, they have around $40 billion net worth, and they have a nefarious and shady history, not doing the best things for the American people. So their group, Americans for Prosperity, they have put six figures behind mail, radio, and digital ad campaigns targeting swing states such as Joe Manchin's state in West Virginia, Lisa Murkowski in Alaska, trying to sway lawmakers to not vote for the COVID relief bill, saying that there's unnecessary spending. Let me know what you think about that. Have you gotten any ads in terms of mail, digital, or TV or radio saying that this is not a good bill and you shouldn't vote for it? I haven't heard anything so far, but let me know if you have down in the comments below. Also, John Kennedy, senator from Louisiana, is saying that the Biden coronavirus stimulus bill is chock full of spending porn. Really interesting choice of words here. Here's a clip from John Kennedy talking about the current bill and the unnecessary spending that I think is really important to know about. Take a look here.
Because the House is set to vote this week on a nearly $2 trillion COVID relief bill. Yes, you heard that right, $2 trillion. Republicans say Democrats are stuffing political pork into the package, including things like a bridge to Canada, the minimum wage hike, and billions in funding for state and local governments. Critics calling the bill, quote, a liberal wish list. Louisiana Senator John Kennedy is a Republican on the Budget Committee. And, of course, Senator, you always have a way with words. How would you describe this bill?
Well, the bill's $2 trillion. Coming right behind it is another $3 trillion that President Biden wants for green infrastructure. The profligacy is mind-numbing. The motto of the Biden administration seems to be, we can't spend too much. Any fair-minded person knows that that's a very superficial, desultory, almost infantile approach. Either that or the people advising President Biden have an opium habit. I mean, any fool can spend money. The objective is not to spend money. It's not how much you spend, it's what you spend it on. 95% of President Biden's bill is not going to even be spent until 2022. And beyond. This isn't a coronavirus bill. This is a left of Lenin neo-socialist wish list. I mean, it just is. It is chock full of spending porn. They've got money for transit projects and bridges and language preservation, billions for people who are in our country illegally. I am all for spending additional monies to combat the coronavirus. But this bill isn't it.
Let me know down in the comments below, what do you think about John Kennedy's remarks about the COVID bill? Surprisingly, Republicans are not against stimulus checks this time around. It's about the unnecessary spending. Personally, I'm an independent, and I am for stimulus checks, unemployment, mortgage assistance, rental assistance, increase in SNAP, Social Security increase, for all of that, but not for anything non-COVID related, as I think most people would agree. Unfortunately, Democrats, knowing that they could pass whatever bill they wanted through reconciliation, I think some of them got a little greedy and put things in there that weren't COVID related. Let me know what you think about that down in the comments below. In terms of the minimum wage, so far we don't know if that's going to be in it. At the time of filming this video, Thursday morning, we still haven't heard from the Senate parliamentarian. Probably later today we should hear, although having one person decide whether minimum wage should be in the bill or not, I think doesn't really make sense. It opens up the door for a lot of bribes or threats to sway things in one way or another. But we'll find out later if it's going to happen. Now, in terms of the vote is supposed to happen in the House tomorrow, and I'll give you more details on what's going to happen with timeline. But first, here's Chuck Schumer talking about the latest with the bill.
The chair of the Federal Reserve, appointed by President Trump, just told us that, quote, the economic recovery remains uneven and far from complete, and the path ahead is highly uncertain. Chairman Powell, hardly a raving liberal, concluded there's a long way to go. And it has broad support in America. 7 in 10 Americans approve of the American Rescue Plan. In some polls I've seen, a majority of Republicans approve of this plan, Republican voters, not Republicans here in the Senate. Now, it's easy to see why there's such broad support. The COVID pandemic is the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, the worst public health crisis our nation has faced in 100 years. But our Republican colleagues say all these groups demanding the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, business leaders, government officials from both parties, economists from across the spectrum, and 7 in 10 Americans, Republicans say all of them are wrong. According to a report in CNN, Republican leaders are maneuvering to get every single Republican member to oppose the emerging legislation, every single one. Make no mistake, Republicans oppose the American Rescue Plan to the detriment of the country, and they do so at their own political peril.
Now, let's talk about the timing and when you could expect to get your $1,400 stimulus check, which seems like it's been forever and definitely was not immediate as promised. So, what is the timing of the stimulus check once the House approves it? As mentioned, the House is set to vote tomorrow, Friday, February 26th. It could go through the weekend, but we still have a few days of buffer time. So, assuming that the vote goes through tomorrow and it passes Congress and it gets signed into law by Sunday, March 14th, which is the deadline before the unemployment benefits run out. So that is the last day before the president could sign off on it. Then we could expect to get direct deposits sent within a week, probably by March 22nd, and then paper checks be sent March 29th, and then the EIP debit cards week of April 5th, because those take a little longer, and then the deadline would be by the end of the year, and then by the following year you would claim any money that didn't get to you, and hopefully sooner than that. Now that's one timeline. Now if something happens where, let's just say, Democrat senators don't vote for it, and there's this big debacle, and March 22nd is the time, a week later about, then this is the timeline right here. You can see these dates of when you could expect to get the stimulus checks. So I'll keep you updated. This all depends on when it passes in the House and what happens with the Senate. Subscribe to the channel if you want the latest in terms of timeline and what's happening with getting your $1,400 stimulus check. Next, let's talk about how business leaders are in support of the stimulus checks and COVID bill. So around 150 New York-based CEOs and other business leaders wrote a joint letter. So these are people, these are CEOs from Zillow, McGraw-Hill, Squarespace, all saying that they are in support of the bill happening and they want it to go through. Now, on the flip side, there are other economists who are saying this is a not so stimulative stimulus bill, basically going against it. For example, here are 2 Republicans. First, I'm going to mention Mitch McConnell, what he says about the bill, and then Kevin McCarthy. First, here's Mitch McConnell.
Well, I'm sure everybody would love to get a check. But they haven't yet learned about what else is in it. And part of our job as the substantial minority, remember we're in a 50-50 Senate here, is to make sure the American people fully understand what's being proposed. Is it a good idea to stick all of these extraneous matters into it? We were open, at least 10 of us, went down to the White House, discussed with the president something more narrow and targeted to the conditions that we find today. Look at the size of this package. It's the size of the CARES Act. We passed that in March of 2020. This is not 2020. There are hopeful signs that the economy is coming back. Vaccines are being distributed. The statistics are going in a better direction. We're in favor of targeting this relief to the conditions that we find today and looking forward, not backward.
Let me know what you think about that down in the comments below. McConnell's saying that this big bill is masked by a $1,400 stimulus check. Don't get me wrong, I'm still in support for stimulus checks going out to Americans who are struggling the most. That money could greatly help out with rent, utilities, fixing a car to get to work, feeding families, so many things, and I think that's great. But the unnecessary spending really bothers me. The more I'm learning about this on a day-to-day basis, it bothers me so much. Let me know, does it bother you as well? I still think it should go through, because if that stuff gets debated and negotiated out, it could take another 6 months. So I still think the bill should go through. Here's Kevin McCarthy talking more about the unnecessary spending, and then I'll get into the Social Security increase in pay.
The House is preparing to pass President Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill by the end of the week without the help of Republicans. Joining us now with more on this and the state of the GOP, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. Leader McCarthy, it's good to see a big piece in the, I don't know if you read it yet, in the Wall Street Journal op-ed pages from Senator Romney, Mitt Romney. I mean, when you lose Romney, with the Democrat. When you lose Romney, I mean, so there must be something wrong with this bill. Biden's stimulus bill is a $1.9 trillion clunker. He makes a lot of points here, one of which is that $700 billion wouldn't even be spent until after the end of this year, wouldn't be spent until 2022 or after. So how is that immediately fighting COVID? It was his point.
Well, it's not fighting COVID because only 9% of this bill goes towards COVID, towards testing, vaccines, or others. $1.7 trillion is for everything else. I mean, think for a moment. This is what the problem lies. We've done 5 COVID bills bipartisan. This is the first one that the Democrats just want to do by themselves. And to get the votes, what are they doing? They're putting in a special project for Nancy Pelosi, $100 million for Silicon Valley Fail Rail project, or a bridge for Schumer. We're watching that the money that's going for schools aren't even being spent. 95% of it won't be spent this year, so will schools even open? You've got more than $60 billion sitting there for schools that were already appropriated. You've got $1 trillion still sitting there that we appropriated that have not gone out. A lot within this bill is a waste or a wish list from the progressives, and I think that's why they're going to have difficulty even making sure all the Democrats vote for it. It's very similar to when Barack Obama came in and they passed that stimulus bill by themselves. And remember what happened at the end of the day a year later. More people thought Elvis was alive than the stimulus created a job. But unfortunately, this is going to do real damage to America, putting this much money out there in a time that it's not smart or surgical to do it.
Next, let's talk about the increase in pay for Social Security recipients. I get asked this question on a regular basis. What's going on with the $200 a month increase in pay? So if we look at Joe Biden's website, he campaigned on the promise of increase in monthly Social Security checks by $200 a month. Also, on Elizabeth Warren's website, Schumer, Warren, and Wyden unveiled a plan to increase benefits by $200 per month for all Social Security beneficiaries. And that's going to give an additional $4,000 over 2 years. So there has been a lot of promises made, just like the immediate $2,000 checks. Unfortunately, nothing has been done yet. The only thing I could find was an increase by 1.3% for Social Security benefits and SSI payments. This will increase by the beginning of December 2020 and should show up in your January 2021 check. So you should have seen an increase if you are on Social Security by 1.3%, which I know is not a lot. Unfortunately, there is nothing going on with the $200 increase in pay. Big promises, no mention from Schumer, Warren, President Biden, or anyone else involved with these promises of $200 increase in Social Security pay. As soon as I find out more, I'll definitely let you know. Next, I'm going to answer the questions you leave for me in the comments. Michael Gray asks, what should I do if a bank I used for the first 2 stimulus checks is no longer providing services? I don't want to send it to that bank anymore. So unfortunately, there's nothing you could do to change the form of payment or where that payment is going to go. The IRS is going to send it to whatever address they have on file or bank account that they have on file. So if they try to send it to a bank account that's closed, it goes back to the IRS. Then they're going to try to send it to whatever address they have on file. If you want to update that, maybe file a tax return. If you're expecting a refund, then you could give a new bank account that way, and then that'll be the new bank that they'll have on file. That's the only way I could think of. Otherwise, it might take a while. Russell Young asks, does SSDI, SSI have any rental help that we can start getting ahead? So at the moment, there is a national rental assistance program, but it's being distributed on a state and county, city and town level. So the requirements for the rental assistance is the same for everywhere, 3 requirements, but as long as you meet those requirements, then you could get it. It's just a matter of finding out which place you're living in is going to distribute it, either the town, the county, or the state. So you have to look up in your area, just Google your place of residence, and whatever rental assistance there is. James Butts asks, will the $1,400 for adult dependents go to the dependent or the one supporting them? Great question. So if you are claimed as an adult dependent, that $1,400 is going to go to the person who claimed you as a dependent. So if you know that you're being claimed as a dependent, you're a college student, or in your 60s, 70s, 80s, however old, just try to contact that person who's claiming you as a dependent and figure out a way to get that $1,400 now, before the stimulus checks go out. Figure out now, open that communication so it doesn't get too messy later on. Christina Luna asks, is it true that California approved additional $600 for Americans? Yes, but it's only for California. So if you live in California and make less than $30,000 a year, or you did for 2020, right after you file your tax return showing that you made less than $30,000, that's how you'll get a $600 check if you live in California. And that is all the stimulus news I have for you today. To brighten your day a bit, here is my daughter Bella's tip of the day.
This is the tip of the day. I'm going to tell you one thing what you can feel. If you really want something, then be a survivor with some juice. Just kidding. Be a survivor and do whatever you want, because that when someone's here for you, you can always use some help. Anyways. Bye-bye.
And if you want to keep the positive vibes going and feel in a better mood, need a little pick-me-up to help out your morning or day or night, click this video over here. It's on my Wise Vibes channel, teaching you how to not rely on other people's opinions. Other people's opinions about you do not matter. So click that video if you want to learn more about that, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, be safe. Thank you for watching.